Hey, everybody. I want to welcome you to rVoice. This is your Uncle G, and I am really happy to have coming to you today a very good friend of mine and a plank owner in rLoop, one of the originals, Dante Bertana. So any second now, let's go ahead and invite him in. All right. Dante, look at you, man. Can you hear me? Dante.
Hey, Gary.
Que paso, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Oh, man, you know what? It is hot as hell here, man. It's
Yeah, I
unbelievable,
bet.
dude. And you're drinking coffee.
Oh, this is tea. This is tea.
Oh, is that tea? Yeah. Well, it's way too hot for tea here. I gotta be on the water. So There you go, water for me.
Water or Pepsi, same difference.
Yeah. Bud Light, actually. That's like
Oh, nice.
got to stay hydrated, man, in these hot days, man. So How have you been?
I've been good. Excuse me. We're not recording yet, right? I'm still kind of warming up. Yeah.
Yeah, we are, but we can go ahead and we can edit however you want. So, but this is a fine opening, so we're doing just fine. So,
awesome. Okay.
How's things up there in the Bay Area?
Things are pretty good. Yeah, the Bay Area has been pretty wild the last few weeks, but it's wild in a lot of major cities around the U.S. and around the world right now. So, it's about exactly what you'd expect. Still daily protests, and there's a lot of momentum behind all the movements. So it's cool
but it's nice to see that all of the protesting right now is nice and peaceful. Hopefully some positive will come out of it. Hey, I want to thank you for being on rVoice. You are as I introduced you prior to me letting you in the room. You're one of the original plank owners with the whole rLoop thing. You started at the very beginning, huh? So
absolutely.
So you're actually one of the people that actually worked on the full design for the Hyperloop, and that's how we met. Tell me how all that started for you.
So for me, how I got involved actually back a few years ago when Facebook was still more relevant than it is today. Right. A friend of a friend shared a post about a group building needing volunteers to build a Hyperloop test prototype pod, and just kind of showed up in my feed, and it sounded vaguely familiar. I knew there was a team on Reddit already kind of working on that. I just didn't know it was in my backyard, and sure enough, I was living in San Mateo at the time, which is just a suburb of San Francisco here.
Right.
And they were building in Menlo Park, so it was like a 15-20 minute drive. Right. So I remember the first day I show up and I'm looking around the room, and there's just people of all just different backgrounds and expertise and ages and interests, and we're all there in this conference room of this company that allowed us to use their space for the manufacturing, and they had some offices as well that they allocated for us. And we're in this boardroom, and there's probably about 60 or 70 people in the room. And as we when there was a meet time, I think it was like 2 p.m. or something, and we didn't really get started talking until 2:30. And between 2 and 4, people just kept trickling in, and more people. And soon enough, there's some people sitting down, some people standing along the room, along the walls of the room. And then there's people on the floor too. It filled up so much.
Really?
So yeah. It was really inspiring. And I remember looking around, I'm like, man, these guys, a lot of these people look pretty damn smart. And then people going back and forth, kind of talking about stuff. And I'm like, oh, they sound really smart too.
Oh, gosh.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, what can I help out with? There's obviously a lot of talent in this room. My background is in IT, and I like to build things as well. And so that's kind of what I got involved in with Hyperloop, was the building of the pod itself. So, fast forward a few weeks, we started setting up a little bit of a lab in the office parkway that we were in. And so me and actually now a really good buddy of mine, he was from Florida, I was from California. We kind of met in our first thing. We met because we were both working on the same thing, which was kind of setting up this lab, right, and getting kind of the equipment ready. And it was an old, looked like kind of like a medical sort of lab. So it was kind of set up already for like a sterile kind of environment, but we were doing hardware. So me and him, we're moving things around, mounting shelves, bringing in electric test equipment, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of how I got involved. And then just as kind of time went on, the interest was always there, and the relevance got more and more. And fast forward, I guess, another year or so. That's, I think, when we first met down in LA. And that's a story.
Zombieland.
Zombieland.
Nut up or shut up, baby. Nut up or shut up. Yeah. So when you actually started with them setting up the lab and all that, although you're an IT hardware guy, you were actually doing that, and the pod was just a concept at the time.
Yeah. So at that time, when rLoop first met in that that office building that I was talking about, before that, everyone just was talking online. There was probably about a dozen, 2 dozen people on Reddit who were just kind of going back and forth using Slack, designing and prototyping a pod completely remote. And they were all around the world. Like people in India, the Netherlands, United States, England. I mean, literally, I think in total at the peak, there was 54 countries represented in rLoop, 54 nations around the world. Right. So quite a wild selection. But at the time, like I said, it was about 2 dozen people. They mostly engineers were working on designs for the pod and different subsystems. And then they all, or not they all, but a few key members flew out to SpaceX to actually present, or yeah, it was SpaceX to present what they've been working on and show the prototypes. Well, not physical prototypes, but the CAD drawings and show some of the math to the engineers. And then from 3,000 entry teams, only I think 10 or 12 were selected to actually move on to then build and then compete at SpaceX. So that team of engineers who actually all met each other for the first time in person at SpaceX after they've been working on this for several months, right, meet at SpaceX and present and win approval to move on to the next stage. So
and then that gave you guys the green light to actually go into production and start building a pod. So prior to this, there was no pod. It was all blueprints.
It's all blueprints, mathematical models, yeah, just that kind of stuff.
Theory,
nothing
stuff
tangible.
like that.
Yeah,
and it was all crowdsourced. See, when I first got involved with you guys, pretty much accidentally, you know how the whole story goes. I had no idea what the whole concept of crowdsourcing was, and so now we fast forward to where we are today, and we look at the COVID. We look at, the world will never really be the same. Our norm has changed. Do you think that the whole concept of crowdsourcing to be able to actually work
with for free
is, yeah,
they did for consumer plans. For commercial plans, I believe it's still Office 365, but who knows? They're Microsoft. They're all over the place all the time, changing things. But
and I actually thought that Microsoft Team was a replacement for Zoom. Once we went into COVID, everybody, don't you wish you'd have bought into Zoom, like last year when not that many people knew what was going on with Zoom. And then all of a sudden we go into COVID, and, now there's like millions and millions of people using this platform, and that's when I saw Teams pop up. I'm like, oh, okay, Microsoft is piggybacking on what Zoom is doing, and nobody cared about Zoom until this broke out. Wouldn't that have been nice, to buy in on it, something like that?
Yeah, actually, I did.
All the goals. Go ahead.
I bought Zoom right after their IPO, but I only just like $100 worth. So, even if it quadruples in value, okay, what's $400? So I wish I trusted the instincts of that, my instincts of that being actually a valuable thing, and went not all in, but put something more significant behind it. But yeah, no, Zoom, it's been impressive. It's been a ride.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, even if your 100 goes to 4, that's 300 you didn't have. So
that's absolutely
can't complain about that one at all. Hey, let me ask you a question here, man. I'm looking at our interview sheet, and I always ask everybody, tell me something about you that most people don't know. Give me a fun fact. Your first job that you ever had as a grown-up was your perfect job? Was the job that you wanted as a kid?
Yeah. Kind of a lame story, honestly. So let me preface with that. Growing up, I was always into electronics and computers, and I always wanted to work with computers. So my first job, first serious job was in IT. And so that's probably the most anticlimactic version of, what do you want to be when you grow up? But it's the truth. And not a lot of people know that either, because that's, I don't really share that. It's a little boring.
Well, you shared it now, and now it's going to go all around the world. So you are telling me that you're a real you're a real techie then, because as a kid you wanted to be an IT guy.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Not a fireman, not a police officer. What do you want to do when you get older, Dante? Oh, I want to do IT stuff and build all kind of interesting things and robots and stuff like that. Maybe go to the moon. So
maybe go to the moon. Yeah,
yeah.
Not an astronaut. Yeah, no.
Yeah, not an astronaut. Yeah, I want to build I want to engineer the landing components, and do all the servos for that. That's my life dream right there. So, well, that's great. So, as we move forward, last time I saw you, we were at rFlight, and that was nice of you to come down and visit the team at rFlight. You were in the backyard, and I know you wasn't on our rFlight team, but you're a looper, and you came, and we had a great time. I really enjoyed seeing you. For those people who've never met Dante before, Dante, I'm going to tell you right now, I know cool people, I know exciting people, but you happen to be one of the nicest guys I ever met in my life. Oh, geez, I doubt it. No, I mean that sincerely too. I couldn't imagine anybody ever, being upset at you for anything. You're just so cool and laid back, So has it always been that way, or when you were a kid? Because remember, you didn't want to be the fireman, you wanted to be the IT guy. So they didn't give you a hard time when you were young, did they?
Gary, thank you for the comment. I'm going to make you the compliment, but I'm going to make you eat those words one day. I'm sure something's going to happen.
No, you're never going to piss me off, man. I just don't see that, man. So,
But yeah, I get that. I get that a lot, especially the calm and kind of easygoing part. I think it mostly stems from coming from a pretty rambunctious Italian family. I think really? Seeing that growing up, and being part of just typical, I think, Italian family drama, definitely motivated me to kind of get that out of my personal life and not really carry that tradition on.
So are we talking about the real deal Italian, like everybody's in the kitchen, when they're cooking and it's like, ah, fangu, what the, well, I can only go by what I watch on TV, they're like, hey, what's wrong with you? You got a problem, and talk real a lot. So as a kid, you just kind of kick back and let them all do all of that and just kind of observe it. Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah. Pretty similar, maybe less with the accents and just kind of more that general theme, that general energy.
Yeah.
We're third generation Italian, so we're obviously no accent or anything.
Right.
And yeah, same with my folks. So, but yeah, same, that kind of energy, definitely. So it's been,
Do your folks speak the language?
They don't. No.
They don't. Okay. They're your grandparents, maybe.
They do, exactly.
Yeah, your grandparents. So they're probably more like the models that you see on TV. But what about the cooking? I know you.
Oh yeah, definitely keep that up.
That's a big part about being Italian. Can you cook?
I really like cooking. I am not the best, but the last 2 months, I mean, what's been going on the last 2 months other than shelter in place? I've been cooking a lot, and definitely been bringing out the family recipes and asking mom and dad for we used to have this as a kid. Like, do you have a written recipe? Or, normally it's not a written recipe. So they just kind of tell me over the phone, and then I improvise with what's available at the store as well. So past 2 months have kind of been a boot camp, if you will, for cooking. I kind of went from just the kind of casual stuff to being a little more elaborate and being a little more intentional with technique and all that. So,
right.
Yeah. Definitely love cooking Italian food. I love pasta. I feel like I have pasta at least 5 times a week, to be honest.
Now, have you gotten to the point where you can make your own pasta?
Yeah. Yes. That's another thing.
Oh, dude, really?
Pasta. That's a game changer.
That's up there. Yeah, man. That's up there. Shoot. So, and I relate to that story that you just told, because I am a American French Creole. So when you think about the bayous of Louisiana, and gumbo and sauce piquant, etouffee and all of that stuff, these were staples for us, and growing up, it was mostly the women that did all the cooking. That was just, a cultural thing. But because I stayed in the military and I've been independent most of my life, my mom and my dad really dug it when I called them just to ask them about, okay, now I know there's three ingredients in the Holy Trinity, Mom. Which one is it? Oh, baby, say, don't forget you got celery. Everybody forget the celery. And I already knew, I just know she would get a kick out of me asking, and now now you got to remember, after 20 minutes, turn that fire down. Now, you don't want to mess up your roux and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good way of keeping with the family and tradition all the same. So I'm gonna have to try out some of your pasta. Now, there's a full kitchen here at Zombieland. So next time you come
next
down,
time I'm down, I'll either make some here or just do it at Zombieland.
Well,
but you mentioned the Holy Trinity. Don't you have? Isn't it a 4-ingredient Holy Trinity? Isn't it? You have carrots, onions, celery for like the Holy Trinity, and then isn't bell pepper also put in a lot for Southern cooking?
It's onion, it's bell pepper, and it's celery.
Oh, okay.
That
no
is
carrot.
That is no carrot, not in the Holy Trinity. Not
Gotcha.
Not in Southern Louisiana cuisine. See, everything gets really mixed up too, because a lot of people say, oh, that's Cajun cooking, that's Cajun. Well, you have Cajun and Creole. There's a big difference between the two. Cajun is normally fish meals,
Okay.
but Creole is normally with sauces, and so the Creole would be your etouffees and and your jambalayas and stuff like that. The Cajun would be like your seafood bis and mostly alligator.
Gotcha.
Which is
yeah.
That's some greasy stuff, man. If you're not deep frying it, it's not the greatest. So okay, so as we move forward with this whole COVID thing, I already see that a lot of people will be working from home. It just makes so much sense. I'm hoping that we can really work on getting our recruitment, back where we were when we were doing the Hyperloop. The R flight is a big thing right now. There's also a couple of other things that are out there. I'm hoping that there's a lot of people that are out there that are engineers that are going to be exposed to the whole rLoop concept and actually, jump on board and try to pop in and out. Because one of the things that I noticed about you guys, and, I kind of stayed in the background, one of the things that I noticed about you guys is that, you can kind of pop in and do what you do and, and then pop out. Or if you don't want to be on this portion of a project, or like a lot of people, it's a whole different team for the most part with the R flight than it is with the Hyperloop. And I know there'll be other things coming up. Now, of course, when the Hyperloop actually gets out there, I don't know if the United States is ever ready for it, but we know elsewhere in the world. And rLoop actually goes forward and actually starts doing a Hyperloop vehicle in one of the countries. Hopefully we'll see all of you guys back again, all the Hyperloop guys. It's just that right now everything is dormant. I'm hoping that after all of this, that everything will get back. It'll never be back to normal though.
Yeah,
I just don't see normal anymore. But the crowdsourcing, the slacking, things like that, I believe that we might see an increase in that, as we move forward. So, and I also believe, and I'm interested in hearing what your thoughts are on this. A lot of people have been out of work, right? A lot of people have been out of work. You ever notice that when you're out of work for a long time, you really aren't too interested in like just going back to work? That you kind of rather, do your own thing or something like that, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I was laid off at the beginning of COVID myself, so I'm kind of in that situation. Never before have I been in a situation like this, though. You know,
Right.
normally it's you have a job, and then when you get bored or frustrated or whatever, you look for another job. Never been in a period of my life without work, and now that I am, it's kind of you're always asking, you're always telling yourself, if you have a job and like your routine and everything, maybe there's a hobby that you want to get into, and you always just tell yourself, when I have time, eventually I'll do it. And for me, the challenge when I lost my job, of course, looking for work is a big component of not having a job. But the thing was, there wasn't a lot of jobs available. People froze hiring, especially in the Bay Area here in the tech sector. Hiring was just straight frozen, and people's offers were rescinded as well, just because companies were like, no, totally put it down. So in absence of the prospects of immediate work somewhere else, you have a lot of time on your hands. And for me, the challenge that I gave myself was, there were a lot of things in my life that I always say, oh, one day I'll do that when I have more time, or when I'm in between jobs. And
There you go.
now I'm there, and I have this time. And so the challenge to myself is, okay, now do it. Now it's like you said you would, and now do it. So
Here,
so yeah, people have a lot of time right now, and I hope that it's being spent with something productive. I mean, of course, you don't need to, feel free to relax and all that as well. Like that comes back, that's part of it too. But hold yourself to some sort of schedule, or hold yourself accountable for something, even if it's, even if it's 50% of your regular output in your day job. Just at least be moving the needle, because this is a rare opportunity. It's unusual that such a big number of people are off work because of the pandemic, or because of anything for that matter. So
right.
really embrace it, and really kind of make the most of it. This is time back in your pocket. And in a lot of ways, time back in your pocket is, depending on your financial situation, is better than extra money back in your pocket. Because with time, time is, I would say, and depending on who you are and what your lifestyle is, time is sometimes more precious than money, and harder to come by money. And
Can't buy time, man.
Can't buy time. Yeah, there's no price for that.
Hey, take it from an old dude, man. Yeah, if that's the case, I'd empty out my Social Security, man, just to tack on another 20 years back or something like that. But it doesn't work that way. And you're absolutely right, man. Now is the time to embrace this. And I've said that, if I ever said I was going to do something and I'm not doing it now, then I'm lying to myself. Then I am just lying to myself. You are not going to do it, Gary. Get rid of that crap. It's a waste of time. So every day I've been trying to keep myself busy. I've been on a workout program now for the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Oh yeah. Although I'm lifting weights now, I'm already a 300 pounder. So now let's lift weights and let's get up to about 350. And just look massive. And and then we'll dye the beard like red or something like that, and get into WWF or something like that. I won't be the wrestler. I'd be the promoter on the outside, screaming at people. You get in there and get them.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Every now and then hit somebody with a chair. That would be nice. That's one of my life goals right there. So
perks of the job.
Yeah, perks of the job. Hit people with chairs. But you're absolutely right. So what's the hobby that you're doing right now? What is the thing that you've been wanting to do that you've just started getting back into?
So a couple things. I think the easier things to check off are like the cooking. It's a thing that I enjoy doing, and it's definitely a necessity to live. So that was a great time to kind of double down on that. But more importantly, and I guess more deeply, is kind of taking the time, and it takes time. It's not something that you could do in a week or even a month in some cases, but really sitting down and analyzing where you are and where you want to be in life. Maybe what your next steps, should be, or maybe if your next steps because you've had them pre-COVID and you had your career and everything, maybe evaluate those next steps to see if they're still relevant, and not just kind of the I'm going to do this and then I'm going to get this job and I'm going to become a manager, and not those steps necessarily, but maybe like, is this industry even right for me? Like, is what I'm doing actually providing fulfillment? Do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And take that time to kind of turn around and look back at what got you to where you are, and really kind of analyze, like, where do you want to go in the future? This is a great opportunity for people, again, with all the free time. It's a great opportunity for people to learn a brand new skill, start a business, look into something that maybe like some entrepreneurial sort of stuff that you never really considered before because you didn't have the time. And really just kind of, for me, that's what I've been doing a lot, is just a lot of self-reflection and a lot of research and learning. The first part of COVID, actually, I spent it learning. I used Python, which is a coding scripting language. I use it professionally a little bit, but it's also like a full-blown coding language that you can develop applications with it as well. So I was using, like in my professional career, I was using it kind of the most basic features of Python. But I tasked myself with learning the language of Python fully to develop some apps. And it's not my first foray into coding, but it was probably the most honest attempt I've given it, because it was a daily thing for about 30 days. And I said, I'm just going to do it for a month and then look back and see what I've learned in a month. And coding for me is like pulling teeth. Every single day of those 30 days was a miserable experience. And I would like end the day just feeling like completely mentally exhausted and pretty unsatisfied. And I think this is the last time I'm going to pick up coding for a while.
Right.
And it just, I know a little bit more. I'm not happy that I know a little bit more, because it came at quite the emotional expense. It's very taxing, but it's kind of one of those things. Like it's not for everyone. It's a great skill to have, but I think being able to recognize kind of where your strengths lay, and more importantly, where your weaknesses lie, optimize for those things. So a lot of what I've been doing is just kind of trying to figure out my strengths and weaknesses outside of what I know already, and kind of just branching out in that way. So,
that's beautiful, actually, because once it's time for you to step back out there into what we're going to look at as our new norm, you may not be the same person. The way you look at things, somebody's going to call you and say, hey, it's time for you to come back to work. And you might say, don't know about that one. Especially if you're taking the time, for self-analysis. I found that, working for the man, and I have worked for the man in the past, working for the man is very rewarding for a lot of people if you're in the job that you love doing, but there's a job and then there are careers. A career is something that they don't even have to pay you to do. You wake up in the morning, it's like, I am more than happy to go to work. Pay me when you get around to paying me. Not realistic, but that's what a career should feel like. And when they do start calling people back, if people aren't taking the time to figure out, hey, am I going back to a job, or am I going back to my career? That self-analysis to find out, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses? That's a beautiful thing. So you'll be more than ready when that time comes. And away from this, we'll be talking and we'll look at other opportunities. So, but our time's about up now, man. How did you like the podcast so far? What do you think?
Hey, so far so good. It's my first time on any podcast ever, so I hope it works out. It's cool though. It's just conversation with Uncle G,
That's all it is, man. Just kicking it with Uncle G, and hopefully we'll be able to do that again real soon down here in Zombieland, man.
Absolutely,
you're not far. Yeah. There's no excuse for you. You're not far. So we just set up the weight room real nice over there. You can come in. And here's a little tip for you. If you really, really want to enjoy doing some cooking, go out and buy yourself just a little splurge, the nicest set of knives that you can. Now there's a company called J.W. Hinkle. If you get a set of Hinkles, just a single stick, man, you will fall in love with your knives, and every day you're going to look for an excuse to cut something. Let me chop something up. Let me cut something up. It just makes cooking that much funner, so.
That's a good tip. Yeah.
Word of advice from Uncle G. All right, Dante, man, I want to thank you very much. I want to thank everybody out there at rVoice, rLoop, Slack, the whole 9 yards for sitting in with this. This is one of just many podcasts that we'll be doing, and hopefully it's not the last time that we'll see my brother Dante also. So Dante, thank you so much, man. I do appreciate you
Hey,
spending this time
you
with
too,
us,
Gary.
man. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Hey, look in the background.
Oh.
You see what I got back there?
I see the teledrone. I was looking at that in the corner of my eye. Yeah.
The teledrone made it to Zombieland. Yes, sir. It's sitting up there. I'm gonna post a picture over in Slack in Zombieland so I can show the other people what the teledrone was. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. I don't want to give it away though. So all right, man. Love you, man. I'll be talking to you soon, huh?
All right, Gary. Speak
All right,
soon.
G out, man. Take care. Bye-bye, you guys. Take care. Toodle pips.